When shopping at the bodega, she views cans with labels, and though she's aware of her preferences, she stays mindful of the fact that a label should not be imputed as the reality of the thing itself. Sitting before towers of labels in the dimly lit mini-mart, she is instantaneously transported to a group of tourists and school children roaming the Duomo in Milano. A chorus of soft swells spring forth so spontaneously from their umbilicus mouths as they wander. Amazing labyrinths of illumination.
I wanted to make something that began to approach a kind of scale of work that one might use the word opera about. And I wanted it to have something to do with the world today and something that addresses where we are.
The real impulse behind the opera was the question of world peace and people really drawing toward one another to support one another.
Making a piece like this, it became clear to me that, well, if there's something we really want to attack, it's something we really want to engage people in, is investigating the nature of illusion, because that seems to be what gets us into the most trouble.
David said that he had for a while wanted to work with the text in some way, the Diamond Sutra, and he asked me if I would be interested in working with him.
The Diamond Sutra is one of the most just clear, incisive, it's called the diamond that cuts through illusion. It just is relentless in its way of breaking that down.
Her life was tightly constructed. So wasn't she surprised when her best girlfriend suggested that rather than go for drinks in Boston as they would do, they take the night off, sitting in a Zen meditation center. Okay, said this woman, though really her expectations were low, and she thought drinks would be a lot more fun. At the Zendo, she met a woman in a robe who looked like both she and me. Same height, weight, hair color, etc. This woman showed her how to sit, how to use her body and mind.
The Diamond Sutra isn't a narrative, it's a conversation between Buddha and his disciple Subhuti, and there really is no story. And in fact, one of the big, one of the themes of the Diamond Sutra is impermanence.
It was very important at the beginning of this that Martine and I look at common origins for things that may differentiate people, and we started with word and sound. Just is there a way that we can think about the evolutionary origin of these things that allows us to take them back to their common starting point? Can we actually imagine that word and sound are not different, and then begin to compose, begin to create something that way?
Before the first words were written that ended up being spoken in the performance, there must have been maybe 2 years, a year and a half. It was a long time before anything was written. It wasn't like, okay, well, let's work on an opera and you write the libretto and I write. It wasn't like that at all. It was a very, very slow process. And David had sent me, he'd send me articles that he was reading in journals and books and recordings of his music and texts that went with that. I would send him work that I had been working on. And so all of these different sources really contributed to the text of Ah.
No obvious common physical attributes are shared by the group. Socioeconomic diversity, gender, race, sexual preference are variables. people communicated over the past few days in secret. A mandala sent to a BlackBerry. Mantras left on voice message. Ideogram on rice paper arrived in the mailbox with exotic postage. MapQuest on how to find Providence. A really good nearby cafe.
In music works, oftentimes the video can very easily subsume and define the music, and we didn't want that to happen. So that's when we came up with the idea that we would use the floor as the principal surface for projection, so that the audience would have an oblique relationship to the image. They would be aware of its presence, and in some instances they could actually read it. But we were mostly concerned with evoking the presence of video, which in some way related to the thematics of a universe that you feel, that you experience the presence of, but you don't engage directly.
I was asked by the Transatlantic Arts Consortium to address also something about the world today, and an idea was hatched. What if we brought together some musicians, you know, from many countries and tried to somehow explore how they could work together as an expression of another way of being on the planet? We were fortunate. We were given some funding from the TAC. We put out a call for applications, and I chose a group of 10 young composer-performers from a variety of countries. It could have been, well, if everybody comes and we figure something out, and in the end we have a recital, you know. But I thought, wait, this could be a very interesting opportunity to approach the notion of collectivity and co-creation.
I'm a channel surfer. I run with my fingers. Before I knew it,
Trouble is my middle name.
idiotically slipped from my mouth. I don't know how I remembered that line from Manhattan. I looked over at the clock, and now it was 3:33 a.m. In a little less than 2 hours, my phone will ring, and someone will be screwing with me.
I am not afraid of death. I just don't want to be there when it happens.
I Alanishly thought to myself. I began feeling consumed with an overwhelming desire to please my boss. Actually, my old boss. Now I hire him for freelance work. And then the stranger on the phone started sounding so much like that old boss, now my employee, that I lost my voice.
Why do we watch movies?
I wondered.
So we had that summer workshop, and at the end of it, we were just, the group was exploding with ideas. And so I thought, okay, now my job is to help lead this and help find a coherent vision in it, get to the oneness that we're looking for.
You know, one of the big themes or ideas in the text and in the music also, in the boundaryless aspect of the music and in the words, is this idea of oneness, and that we are one. The audience and the performers are one, and that was something that I felt really did very much come through.
Uncertainty, every act, every correlated uncertainty, every correlated uncertainty, every act, every correlated uncertainty, every in that part of the universe which interacts with light, in that part of the universe which interacts with light, in that part of the universe which interacts with light, in that part of the universe which interacts with light, in that part of the universe which interacts with light, in that part of the universe which interacts with light, in correlated uncertainty, every correlated uncertainty, every.
There were 10 composers coming from 10 different places throughout the world. There were a variety of musical impulses. The stories were written by Martine, were related to one another, but were not related in a straight narrative way. So we had a series of fragments. And what I knew as a directorial strategy was that we were going to have to provide continuities that would create a coherent totality, an experience for the audience that was going to be whole in some way. The introduction of the dancer was an effort to provide a kind of performer continuity. That was also true with the two people who were speaking the text, one man and one woman, who were a constant presence for the audience to relate to through the whole piece.
One of the things that we wanted, we both were very interested in having an experiential work, but also an entertaining work. We wanted people to come and enjoy themselves, which I really felt happened. And that's one of the reasons why this experience, the 3 performances at Red Cat, were so exciting for me, is because I was at each performance and I got to see the people around the theater really digging it. And people got to the theater early and people left late. People stayed at the theater for an hour after the show was over. People were still at the theater, you know, talking and enjoying themselves. And so the whole experience of the pleasure of the theater, of the performances, really was extremely satisfying.
I thought of the performance itself as a kind of bubble in the experience. And that bubble represents the group experience. You know, the one way to experience that involves getting a lot of people in the same space. But it has had a lead up of many interesting experiences, and it will have an afterlife after the performance. It will have a future. It's not even an afterlife. It's an ongoing life. So there are many ways that it's going to manifest. There is a website that will continue to evolve, that will present more material than could have been presented in the public performances so far. We'll be developing more mobile media parts of it. We expect that we'll have opportunities to go to other venues and have other workshop periods and develop further aspects of it. It is not insignificant, I think, that we call it an opera generator. It's the kind of thing where you could just keep making it for a long, long time. It's an opera that just doesn't end. It has no ending. You could compose for the rest of your life on this piece and produce really interesting body of work. So it will have an ongoing life in a variety of forms.
Their pliant bodies form the church's interior. Exclamations exhaled, no form. Oh, spread in waves, skimming off one mass of confessing cells to a mass of children, to the monks' harmonious patterns of sound, non-abiding. Space in the easterly direction is incalculable, is it not? The instability of her vibrating body and the cash register calculate her debt. On the line, she breaks into smaller cells. Cells subdivides. Online, she searches in cyberspace.